Alright, welcome back. This episode we're going to work on displaying the score that we're now tracking in our game state and updating with our game engine to the user so that the player knows what their current score is. And to do that, we're going to go create under the UI menu. We're going to create text. Now, you'll notice when you created text, it's nested under a canvas, and this event system also popped in. The UI system is fairly robust. It was added in Unity 4.6, but it's robust, but also has a lot of things going on that they do by default, like throwing in this event system that you may not need. We're actually going to just delete event system. We don't need event system for anything we're doing in this game. And it's not something I'm going to get into or cover. So this canvas object is where we're going to start, right? So if I double click on it, you can see it's kind of weird. It doesn't look like it's over the grid of the game. But if you look at, I don't know if you can, how well you can see this. I'm going to go to text real quick, and we're going to go ahead and change it to green so it's more readable on our screen. There we go. You can see new text is there and backwards and flipped around. Again, you know, I made that choice in the very beginning for some weird reason that I wanted to flip it around so that front was front. But if we flip it around to back, okay, the way this canvas is rendering, it's going to make things, don't worry, everything lines up here, but everything's going to work out in the game. Okay, so you can see we got new text here, and it's down here, but if you look, this little box over here is the game window, and the text, however, is in this bigger zone, but yet it's there. So this was what the canvas job is. The canvas's job is to provide a abstracted canvas to put our text elements and our user interface elements, our UI elements, onto. And the first thing here, and that you'll notice, is it doesn't have a normal transform. It has a rect transform, okay? Because it's kind of driven by the canvas. So it's abstracted. It's taken out of the game's 3D space right now, and controlled by some other attributes. So ignore this for a second up here and focus on canvas right here, okay? Let me go ahead, and I forgot to get my hotkey tool up. I will launch it right now. Jump in here. If you're curious, I use Zoom It. That's what's been doing that power. All right, so we're going to look at canvas. There we go. We're going to look at this canvas control right here, where its render mode is in screen space overlay, and it has a pixel perfect checkbox. This basically means if the math results in a situation where the text or the element's going to start between two pixels, there's going to be a 0.5 pixel to go ahead and snap it one way or the other. And there's a scaler here as well. And then the raycasting, we're not going to get into anything like that just yet to worry about that. But for the most point, we're going to just focus on this canvas, and we're going to ignore the rest. Okay? So the screen space is right now overlay. What this means is it's going to take this canvas. You see this square? I'm going to go free aspect, and see it just got bigger. And then as I resize it, or if I squeeze it down, it's going to resize to whatever the screen is. Okay? The second option here is very similar. It's screen space camera, and you notice not anything really changed here. But it is an important change because instead of just overlaying on top of the screen, it's going to use the camera to decide how the overlay works. So it's attached to, right now it says none. We'll attach it to the main camera. And notice now, it disappeared. Where'd it go? Oh, it's down here. It actually has sized up a bit. Our planar distance, I think we're too far in front of our camera. Let me go ahead and get out of that mode, get into a mode that I can see where we're actually located right now. As I change this planar distance, I move it closer. There we go. Now we pop in. So if I click on my camera, you can kind of see the box that we have set up right now. We tightened that up in an earlier demo just for rendering purposes and tests. I think we can also take this. Oops, sorry, planar distance. So we can move it too close to the camera as well. But it's still an overlay. So notice no matter which side I put it on, I don't know if you're seeing me do that there, but I'm moving it back and forth on each side of the game elements, and it's not, it's not actually low enough. Let's go ahead and make it low enough. Okay, I'm going to put new text over the white there at the bottom. Okay, so now it's getting clipped, right? And that's the main difference of rendering it with the camera, is that it's going to use its camera for its sizing, but it's in front of the camera. Now, there may not be many situations in which this is useful, because you don't want this. This would be moving around with the player. So as the player stepped back or stepped forward, if there was a first-person shooter perspective, things would be clipping in and out of walls and such. It may be a situation in which you want that. One I can think of right now is if you play Dead Space, and Isaac, when he brings up his visual view screen interface on his arm, if you wanted to, when he was in that arm mode, to allow explosions and something that might take in front of, that might actually occur, okay, between the screen and his face, that would obscure it, and that would get the effect that you wanted to do. But it's rare that you'd actually use this one. The last mode here is World Space, okay? And World Space is just that. It's just present somewhere in the world. So I can move it now anywhere. I could move it before it was attached to the camera. And this is great if you wanted to put this user interface, like say on a computer terminal in the world, so that it is always on that computer terminal in the world. And if the player looks at it from all kinds of odd angles, you know, it rotates and everything, and looks correctly. You know, we can rotate it, and do different perspectives, you know, with the text, and put it anywhere. So let's reset this and reset this. And we're going to set this back to overlay in the screen space. So when we do the overlay in the screen space now, I'm going to go back to looking down back, and I'm going to set our view back to orthographic. Double click on the canvas. Okay. Oops. Something got. Okay. Got everything back to normal. Now with the canvas here and in screen space, it's just going to overlay and take up the full size of the screen, which means all of our elements can be laid out relative to the edges of the screen. We don't need to worry about anything else. And it is going to scale. So we can have it be a constant pixel size, right? And if we have it be a constant pixel size here, and let's go ahead and take our text object real quick. We're going to move it right about there. Okay. So it's got some position data over here. And if I change this to say 16 by 9, it stayed there. If I change this to 4 by 3, it stayed there. Okay. So if I go to free aspect, it crunches in a little, but that's more because it's centering. It's not actually moving over. We can actually clip it. Okay. So that is constant pixel size, meaning it's just a set pixel size, and that would be fine in our game because we're not really targeting a whole bunch of screen resolutions. But the more common setting that I prefer is scale with screen size. So here I can come in and I'm going to type in 1280 by 720. just because I know that one off the top of my head is a 16:9 aspect ratio. And I'll set it to expand here. Rather than choose one or the other, it's just going to expand to match. But now, let me go to my text and bump up the font a little bit. We can see it again. Interesting that, oh, okay. I know why that's happening. If it overflows, it's set to wrap, and if it vertical overflows, it's set to truncate. So we can change both of these to just overflow. And now, so the dimensions of the text aren't lining up with the actual box of the text, right? We can fix that in a moment. Or we may not even need to worry about it for this game. But now that we can see it here, move it around. Okay, so our text is up here in the corner. And now if I go to a 16:10, or if I go to a 4:3, it's sort of relatively spacing itself off of that corner. If we go to free aspect, it's going to keep relatively spacing it. It's not working great yet, though. Okay? And to make it work a little bit greater, we can click this anchoring button here on our text. And we can choose that we want to anchor this actually to the top right of the screen. We want to choose that as the anchor point. And with that chosen as the anchor point, if everything's going according to plan, yes. Now we're adjusting and scaling much better, staying relative to that location of the screen. Okay, we're going to go back to what we're targeting, 16:9. Okay. If you ever get it really lost, you can come in here and just zero these out. You can even zero out the height and width, which I do sometimes, actually, to not have a box. And in this case, this might be a good one to zero out completely. I will come down here now, and the alignment of the text, instead of right justify, I'm going to left justify. So it's pushing off that edge, right? As if I type more text, it's going to push off that edge. So as our score grows, right, it's going to push that direction. That's what we want. We do want to keep it top to line. And with that set, I'm going to go ahead and just change this to, okay, score 0. With all this set, I'm going to drag it over a little bit, and I'm going to drag it down a little bit and just sort of use this bottom screen here. And it's based off the top and the right, so those paddings are going to stay constant. So it will always stay nicely in that location, regardless of screen size. Well, the aspect ratios will have an impact, but we're not going to worry about multiple aspect ratio support just yet. All right. So that gets us some text up in the game. It's overlaid. If I can go ahead and get the ball to hit it, we'll see here. It should go right underneath it because it's just overlaid on the game. So it's not actually taking up space in the game world. But it's not actually, I'll go ahead and restart here. We haven't done anything to make it update yet, right? No, it's still saying there it scores 0. So we have to update that. Now, I've told you everything has a transform, right? And when you click on this text, right, it has a canvas renderer, which is what attaches it to the canvas. And then that canvas renderer uses this rect transform that's sort of giving these relative coordinates that we're setting everything in. This is still a transform. It's just a rect transform. So if you go back to our main camera, just like we grabbed an instance of the ball by having a public transform, we can do the same thing if we come over to our game engine right here. Okay, so by having a public transform score text, I can now take this text and just drag it into this text here, and you'll see it says rect transform. Okay, that's just sort of letting us know it's not exactly a transform in the normal sense. And if you're going to manipulate the position in code, that would be more important. We just need a reference, a handle to get this guy and change his text when the score changes. All right. So what the next step here is to change this text. All right. Now this score text is the transform object. We're going to need the component. Okay. So if we look here on the text lives as a text property in the text script. Okay. Sort of giving you a hint that this is just Unity script code. This isn't anything special in Unity. You could write everything that this control is doing. It's a script itself. I think if we hit our help, these new components, the helps don't always link well to the direct scripting APIs. So we're not getting hints on how to script that. I was checking that out earlier as I was prepping for the demo, and that is unfortunate that the documentation lacks a little bit in that regard. But you could find it through searching through there. So no, what I show you is in the documentation. It's just not. It has a nice little view the scripting interface box that everything else does. So with this text script here, we need to get a reference to it. And so where that actually lives is in Unity Engine UI text. And to save ourselves a bunch of typing, to save us having every time we want to get to text, tapping this and that, we can actually take this bit here and come up top and say using Unity Engine UI, and then notice that text went in the light turquoise color. So I'm just going to set score, and this is going to be a private, and then here I'm going to do score text get component, just like we do for everything else. Everything's a component. Text. And now this score, is a direct link to this component right here. And so now we could access all of these programmatically, but we're interested in this text field. So when the score is updated, we can set the score label, get the text property, and set it equal to score. It's going to look very much like our debug statements from before. We can set that label, and that should be all we have to do. There we go. Well, all right, I'm going to try it again. There we go. And now the score goes up by the value that we're setting in our game. So at this point, we have some weird bouncing things that can happen. There's definitely some more physics rules we might want to apply and adjust. We might want to make things go a little faster. We might want to make things speed up in the game. Definitely you're going to want more than 3 bricks in the game here. And all of these things you should take at this point and do. Okay? I am tasking you now at this point to play around with this and flush this out more and solve some of these, issues and problems that, where it's going slow, it hits at weird angles and the ricochet isn't quite what you want. Maybe we need to adjust the bouncy material on the edges and play with the physics there. Maybe we need to, in our scripts, check on these collisions and limit certain angles from not being possible in the game. You know, there's several ways that you could go about handling this. And the reason I'm not continuing the tutorial from this point is it's not going to be helpful to you. If I just continue to show you tweaking and setting these things and leave you with a complete working game, then you don't really have much of an incentive or to keep messing with it. So I'm going to leave you this mostly finished where you have sort of the basics in place, such that, you know, we've already added to main camera, for example, a reference to the ball. So if the ball is to hit, let's say, the bottom down here, right, that would be a missed opportunity by the player, that you could put the ball back to the starting location, reset the score to 0. The way you would want to do that is you would want to maybe put a tag on this wall at the bottom here. Okay, so put a tag on the bottom wall, right? Tag it something as out of bounds or something that you would know of. And then in the collision, you could check for that tag, okay? That the ball collided with an out of bounds object, or you could put it in the code for this bottom wall itself, right? That it collided with the ball, it had a collision. And with that collision, then you would go into your game engine and call a method in game engine that would say reset the ball, player died. Okay, you could even implement lives if you wanted to have another text option up here that had lives and decrement lives and keep score. When lives got 0, reset everything, reset the bricks in the game. You could build out a whole army of bricks here. You could change their color per levels. You could change the score that you got as you went up levels. Or some of the brick games that I've played in the past, every time you bounced off the ceiling, there was a slight increase in speed happening. So you can implement those things. But all of these things are things that you can do and play with. And real learning happens when you are off on your own, just messing with and figuring things out. Tutorial, instruction, reading books, following videos is a nice companion to learning. And it sort of guides you along a path and will get you started and help you solve some problems when you look things up. But the real aha moment, the keys of unlocking of understanding, will come from you actually going through and figuring things out and trying to figure out why it doesn't work the way you expect and looking that up. And that's the knowledge that's going to stick with you. So because of that, I'm going to end this first set of tutorials here and allow you to go off on your own with this basic game framework, and you see where you take it. Now, if you have any questions on any of the videos, I think I put in the links down there to ask on the forums, but I'm just going to explicitly say you want to go to the Unity forums to ask questions. I get a lot of questions on, comments in the video, and unfortunately, if you do that, you're just really relying on one person to come by, see, and have the time to answer the comment, me. You're not getting a lot of traffic that's going to regularly see those comments. If you go to the forums, then you have thousands of people who could help you out along the way there as well and answer your question, and you'll get a much faster answer. And they may point out better ways to do something than I have shown to do it, or alternative ways that may work better for what you're going to do. I in no way am going to guarantee that everything I did here is the best way to do it. It's just a way to do it. And I just stress that you don't obsess too much at the beginning on the best way, and just figure out a way to do everything, because you can always go back and change the way some things are done when you run into an actual performance problem. So don't solve problems you don't actually have. Just spend your time getting your game up, and best of luck to you, and I hope you stick with it. And if you do want to link me to the video, or leave a comment below with a link to where you've posted your breakout game that you took from this and ran with it, and you hosted, say, on Itch.io, itch.io. It's a great free hosting site for games, especially made in Unity, and link me to it. I would love to check it out. So thank you for watching this series.